Here is our friend Ann Coulter, the syndicated columnist and the best-selling author of In Trump We Trust, Pluribus Awesome, and the upcoming Resistance is Futile, how the Trump-hating left has lost its collective mind. And they have the very fact that they've come down to arguments like he buys too many baseball tickets on his credit card and his name sounds like a frat boy. You know that they're at rock bottom for arguments about that.
No, this one's going to be fun. As I pointed out in my column, I noticed that night, and actually since then, I immediately turned to MSNBC, naturally, as if my remote were not already spot welded to MSNBC. And they weren't even covering Kavanaugh. They have not been covering Brett Kavanaugh, this magnificent Supreme Court nominee chosen by Trump on Monday. Thank you, President Trump. They're back to, the same old recycled stories. It could be a year ago. We're back to Michael Flynn, to Manafort, to NATO, and which suggests to me that people watch TV for wish fulfillment, and the frothing at the mouth left. At least the sane ones realize, okay, this is not going to be a good story. Our audience is not going to end up cheering any of this. We're going to lose. Let's just cheer them up by telling them that Paul Manafort is in solitary confinement.
And being treated in a way worse than we treat many convicted criminals, even though he's far from convicted, right?
Yes, and for something at least as concerns, why they fixated on him, that has absolutely nothing to do with Trump or the campaign.
Yeah, and kind of following the Hillary Clinton, let's throw the filmmaker in jail. If he's connected to Trump, we'll show me the man and I'll show you the crime.
Absolutely right.
As a famous
All of them
Russian
are like that.
said.
The one who is the most like the California filmmaker, that was the one that they blamed the Benghazi riots on, for those of you who have forgotten many of the left's red herrings. In this one, it was some guy, and if he's breaking the law, and it sounds like it's against the law, but if you get thrown off social media, something like Twitter or Facebook, you need to create another identity if you want to get back on Facebook, and
right.
If you want to troll people or if you want to sell stuff or something, you need a new identity. And there's a guy, again, in California, who's probably, a social justice warrior liberal. Who knows what he is? But he sells these, and it's kind of a black market because he has to apparently engage in a little identity theft or some sort of theft of, like, bank account numbers where they'll deposit, like, 17 cents in your bank account. But he has nothing to do with Trump, nothing to do with Russia. But apparently that's how the trolls who were posting all those massively powerful Facebook ads and Instagram posts, they use this guy's services. So, oh boy, Mueller cracked down on that one.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. I want you to explain to my audience why this is so very critical to the left, that they have even at this point, before Trump gets a third pick, which I fully expect to see him get, if not this term, then the next term, that this is so critical to the left because they've lost their ability to go to either legislatures or the Congress and get changes made. So they've decided, well, we don't need any of that. If we can get the Supreme Court to create rights, then we don't have to worry about legislating.
Yes. Two things should always make you think of this whenever they talk about judicial activism on the right. There is no judicial activism on the right. Our judges interpret the law and the Constitution. You might disagree with them. You might say, no, actually, if you read this statute with this statute, I think there's another way of interpreting it. I mean, even Scalia and Bork disagreed about some things, but they weren't looking at a 200-year-old document and saying, hey, here's a right to gay marriage. Oh, look, and here's one to abortion. No, only the left does that. And so the other thing, what made me think about it and why I wrote this column was after Kavanaugh was nominated, I saw the nut base of the Democratic Party Sanders and Cory Booker. And by the way, the social justice warrior routine does not work well on Cory Booker. It really is kind of ridiculous. Elizabeth Warren, and they're all, and that guy Jeff Merkley, they're all out there saying he threatens our rights, our rights. He's going to take rights away, rights from women. And I'm thinking, wait, aren't you guys United States senators? If any rights are being threatened, why don't you pass a law? Well, of course, because that is why the Supreme Court, I mean, for 40 years this has been true. Why is the Supreme Court so important to the left? Because they're kooky ideas. They can never win through democracy. They could add we have amended the Constitution. Go ahead, add a constitutional amendment. But the Constitution isn't our only source of law. There's federal laws, there's state laws. Go to your state legislature. Oh, I know. Why don't you put on the ballot whether your state should permit or ban gay marriage? Oh, yeah, they did that. And for 10 years, every time it was put to a vote of the people voted no gay marriage.
Yep.
So, okay, screw it. Let's just go to the courts, and they'll hand it to us on a silver platter and say, we just discovered in this document written 100 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago by our very, very, very Christian founding fathers, we just detected an invisible inked gay marriage clause. And it's the same thing with, the First Amendment protections for pornography. Oh, come on. That's like trying to protect a dildo. The exclusionary rule, the Miranda rule, all the rights for criminals, the reason criminals are always being sprung. Oh, banning prayer from the schools. They can never run on this stuff and win. They've tried. They often try, but they lose. And so they go to their judges and get them to announce, from the bench, not because, as is pointed out all the time by Federalist Society types, in the Federalist Papers, what, kind of acknowledged by all three authors, the judiciary was the least dangerous branch. It didn't have control of money, didn't have control of the military, least dangerous branch. But 40 years ago, liberals figured out, yes, but procedurally, no one can review the Supreme Court's rulings. So if we can just persuade 5 people, forget persuading our fellow citizens, but forget passing laws, starting initiatives, electing representatives who will push for the sorts of laws we want. If we can just get 5 guys, mostly guys, a lot of gals, on the Supreme Court to discover this invisible ink constitutional right to all the stuff we like, we win.
And this is now essentially threatened or foreclosed for what, a half a century. If Trump gets if he gets a third pick, either this term or next term, that goes away for a half a century, right?
I hope so. We have to, seriously, we have to pray, because the Republicans have gotten a lot of these nominations. Apparently, these guys get up to the court. I mean, Warren Burger, Earl Warren, Brennan, Stevens, Souter, O'Connor. These were all Republican appointments, and I mean, this is why in one of Justice Scalia's famous dissents in Casey, the case that did not overturn Roe v. Wade, despite 5 Republican justices being on the Supreme Court, Justice Scalia had a great line saying, "This is why Lord Acton did not say, power tends to purify." Apparently you get up on the Supreme Court and think, hey, it's a lot more fun being a philosopher king and just issuing edicts from on high than interpreting boring, Railroad Act statutes.
Yeah, no kidding. Her column is very readable every single week, but I loved it this week. Oh, and we never even got to the T-shirts. I heart partial birth abortion. Not exactly a winner for the Democrats. And thank you very much. Ann Coulter is the author of the upcoming Resistance is Futile, How the Trump-Hating Left Has Lost Its Collective Mind.